Back here, the Brick and Banter podcast, brand new studio. Ethan Burke, Irongate Realtors.
Brett Williford, also Irongate Realtors.
Yeah, we got an interesting topic today.
We do have an interesting topic today. We've seen a rise of an issue that has come up in the area, and this happened a number of years ago, but it was really more Craigslist based. Pretty much anything on Craigslist right now, I think people always look at with an air of skepticism. But the scammers have really moved on to social media, and we really hope that people will kind of look at some of these things with that same degree of skepticism.
So what are they doing?
So what we're finding is that scammers will go out and they'll take a property that we legitimately have up for sale, sign in the yard, lockbox on the door, photos, multimedia, the whole 9 yards. And they will, copy and paste our photos from the internet, and then they will repost that same property very legitimately looking as a for rent offering instead of the for sale offering that it is. And where that becomes an issue is, it's typically either somebody overseas or somebody routing through a VPN, so we don't necessarily know who they are. But they're really preying upon the emotions of people who need to find housing immediately. And people who are looking for a great deal on a rental property, maybe in a favorable school system. And, they post these online. Typically with a telephone number, what we find is those numbers are usually routed through like WhatsApp or some other platform. But what they'll do is they'll say, I'm a active duty military member, I'm stationed overseas, I've got this great house in Bellbrook, Beaver Creek, Inglewood, Vandalia, wherever it might be. It's up for rent. We're just looking for a good family to move in, take care of our home for us. We're kind of offering it at a great deal because, we want it to be something that somebody will take care of. They're not the owner of the property, is what it turns out to be. And they work out a scam where people Venmo, Cash App, even wire transfer, ACH, first month's deposit plus first month's rent to them, and that money is then gone. These poor people, we've had them actually show up to homes with a U-Haul truck ready to move in, and they're surprised that someone is still living there. They knock on the door and the homeowner greets them, and typically a rather heated discussion ensues from there. So it's really an unfortunate situation.
And then they're pretty much out of luck.
They're pretty much out of luck. The few things that we can do, obviously, when we find these, we report them to the different social media platforms. Yeah. I always also send an email to the Ohio Attorney General's office to report them. But typically, it's an international thing, so it turns into FBI, which, again, we can forward those to spoof@fbi.gov is another great site that we can report things to. But the FBI, they just don't have the resources to chase down, every little financial scandal that goes on. So, like you said, often people are just out the money, and once it's gone, it's gone.
That sucks.
It really does.
Because that was where they were planning on living, so they don't have anywhere else to go back to, too.
Yeah, for sure. And what we find, there's nothing more personal that people spend their money on than housing. Yeah. Whether they're buying a home or renting a home, they're looking to take care of their family. And it's just really unfortunate that these people are preying upon that emotion. What we find is that, it's typically well below market rent. That should be your first red flag if you see that. We just recently had one in the Sugar Creek school system, 3-bed, 3-bath home, living room, family room, 2-car garage, very easily a $2,600 a month rental property, and they were offering it for $1,300. So that should really be your first clue that maybe something isn't going right. They only want to communicate typically by, like I said, by WhatsApp or some other, messaging platform. But usually what will happen is you call the number, there's no response. But then they'll message you back, hey, were you calling about the property? And again, it's a very, very polished presentation. If it looks like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Especially if you've seen the ad multiple times. If somebody's really offering something at a sub-market rent level, somebody's going to scoop it up pretty quickly. So if you're still seeing that days or weeks later, you can pretty well be sure it's a scam.
Yeah. So what kind of steps can they take to avoid getting scammed?
Even if before you make the call, do a drive-by on the property. If you see a for sale sign, again, pretty good chance it's going to be a scam.
Yeah.
It really seems to have become another trend. If you go online and you just search homes for rent and pick whatever community that you happen to be watching from, if you see something pop up that looks like it's a really great value, pretty good chance it's going to be a scam. I actually had one of these, from the gray hair. I've been doing this a while. About 15, 20 years ago, literally the situation I described, a tenant showed up at the home with a U-Haul truck ready to move in, knocked on the front door. My seller on the property, since it was not for rent, actually happened to be an Army Green Beret, and a very heated discussion ensued pretty quickly. And you've got this tenant who feels as though, prospective tenant, that they did everything right, and they're thrilled. They were the ones that locked down the property, and then they show up only to be, really kicked in the teeth with news that not only do they not have a home to move into, but, thousands of dollars are gone and basically irretrievable.
Are they sending them like bogus leases too?
That's a good question. We
I assume that has to be part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably do send them paperwork of some sort, or we've seen all different kind of angles with it, to where the paperwork will be in the home for you. Just send us the rent, fill out the paperwork, and then drop it in overnight mail to us. We actually had one where the scammer basically said that they were an underwater welder stationed here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that they were currently stationed in England. Now, anybody familiar with our area here knows that we don't have a really big demand for undersea welding here in the Midwest. So again, if something doesn't pass the sniff test, pretty good chance it's going to be something that you just want to scroll on past, or even report. That would be a great thing to do if when consumers do discover these things, right click on it and do whatever you can to report it to the platform, so that these bad actors aren't successful with somebody else.
Are they posting this stuff on like Facebook Marketplace?
We've seen them on Marketplace. We've seen them on Instagram, on Reels, and then recently, the one that we most recently found was on TikTok. And they literally, they took all of our pictures, they did text overlays on them, and they put them right out there for lease. And that's really what happened. So
it's kind of scary.
It's very scary, and again, they're really dabbling with people's emotions, and that's the sad part about all of it. People show up with a couple of kids, and the kids are excited about moving into their new home, and maybe changing schools, or maybe even staying within the same school system, and all of it, every single bit of it was a lie from the beginning. The realtor didn't do anything wrong. They're posting everything out there, marketing the home for sale as they have been charged to do by the seller of the house, only to find out that, again, some bad actor, scraped all of their marketing materials and reposted it for really malicious reasons.
I just had a thought about that. It seems like this whole thing can be avoided if you just do a walkthrough of the property. Because it's not like anyone who's spoofing the house is able to come there and show it to you. True,
but what we have found is that they really lean into the fear of missing out, the old FOMO aspect. And, we've got multiple people interested. If you want this, the first person who sent us the money, they're the ones that get the property. And again, people get in this sense of desperation. We have to find something. And they'll make that bad decision. And then they'll open up the app, they'll hit send, and the money's gone. Recently we did report this to the local news. I'm sure somebody will comment on your podcast. We did report it to the local news. They did a big story on it as well. So it is a very well documented scam. Unfortunately, it's a very successful scam. And that's really something that, why we wanted to kind of sit down and bring this to everybody, just on your platform for your followers here, so that people know, again, if it seems too good to be true, take that moment to pause and just really ask yourself, is this person going to charge half of what the typical rent amount would be on this house just to do you a favor? They don't know you. There's no reason for them to do you that favor. They're in this from a business perspective, and then all of a sudden you've parted with your riches on something that was a total lie from the beginning. Here's what it looks like. I'll kind of show you, and we can kind of show the camera here as well. Probably won't be able to pick it up.
Nice little bi-level.
Yeah, nice little bi-level in Bellbrook. This was 3 bed, 3 bath. offered at $1,200 a month.
Nice.
So
This is one of our listings that they sold.
this is one of our listings here at Irongate. It's listed by a company called KT Properties. So if you see one of those, red flag.
FBI is not going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars tracking down a scammer in another country to try to get your $1,200 back.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Right, it's not.
It's not feasible.
Yeah, it's not realistic, so don't have that expectation. Just be vigilant up front.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to talk about?
I think we're good.
Cool.
Excellent. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks for
This
coming
is
in.
a great service that you're providing to the community here, and if we can stop one person from again sending their savings to a bad guy, then we've really done our job here. So nice job on what you're doing.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the studio.
Yeah,
you guys set up.
absolutely. Yeah, it's great.
An amazing resource.
It's great. Thanks again. Appreciate you.